Hello there, and thank you so much for tuning in to Town Meeting TV's coverage of the Essex Junction and Essex Westford School District elections. My name is Emily Brewer, and I will be moderating tonight's candidate forum. This program is part of a series of forums hosted by Town Meeting TV in advance of Election Day on Tuesday, April 8th, 2025. These forums are made possible by Town Meeting TV's generous underwriting partners. Thank you very much. You can find all our forums at cctv.org or on our Town Meeting TV YouTube channel. On tonight's program, we will hear from the two candidates who are running for a seat on the Essex Junction City Council. Those candidates are Bethany Clark and Brian Sheldon. Thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Thanks, Emma.
So we have prepared a list of questions for each of you. You'll have 90 seconds to answer each question. Now, rebuttals are allowed, but only if a candidate is named directly, and then if that happens, you have 30 seconds to respond. If you are tuning in live, we welcome your questions at 802-862-3966. If you call in, we will do our best to prioritize your question, though we will screen calls to ensure questions are not repeated. We do ask that you share your name, the town you live in, and that your question be directed at all candidates and not just one candidate in particular. So with that being said, we'll get started with opening statements. And tonight we're going to start with Brian, so could you please tell us why you're running and what will be different for Essex Junction if you are elected?
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Brian Sheldon, and I'm running for Essex Junction City Council. I have a long history of commitment to Essex Junction and experience working towards achieving our shared vision in this special community. Whether that's winning state titles for Essex track and cross country and ice hockey, or accepting the public's call for a write-in campaign for Select Board in '22, or working hard to bring together Essex and Essex Junction, I will always fight for Essex Junction and for you. I'm a software engineer and consultant by trade. So one thing I've learned from doing consulting is that you can't do anything by yourself. If I write code that doesn't work with my neighbors, everything crashes. If we don't communicate with the test team, they may miss bugs. And if we don't write things that the sales team can sell, we're all going to lose our jobs. So I don't really do coding as much as what I do is collaboration. And that is, it's about collaboration. So my career of collaboration and of solving complex problems, I think makes me a good fit for the Essex Junction City Council. Please vote for me, Brian Sheldon, on April 8th. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. All right, we'll move on to Bethany. Can you tell us why you're running and what will be different for Essex Junction if you are elected?
I moved back home to Essex Junction in the spring of 2024 to help my parents. As soon as I got home, I realized that as much as I love living with my parents, even if I wanted to, I could not move because it is unaffordable to live in Essex Junction. I can't afford to rent, let alone purchase my own home. That is what drove me to run for city council. As a city councilor, I would be the youngest at 31. I'm a queer woman. I'm a renter, although admittedly not in a traditional renting arrangement. I'm a non-driver. I think there are a lot of perspectives and lived experiences that aren't represented on the council, and I want to bring some of those lived experiences to the council and also just make sure that they're being heard. I think that will lead to a broader diversity of solutions brought to the table for the issues that our city is facing. And I hope you vote for me on April 8th.
Great. Thank you so much, Bethany. All right, we'll move right on to our questions that we have here, starting with the budget. And we'll start with Bethany. Will you be supporting the Essex Junction city budget as outlined in Article 1 on the ballot, which is about $12 million? And kind of as a follow-up to that, what does this represent to voters?
I will be voting yes on the budget. It is about a 2.6% tax increase, which comes out to about $73 for as an increase for a $280 home. I realize that for a lot of Essex Junction residents, that's still a lot of money. It's still painful, but the rate of inflation right now is about 2.8%. The rate of healthcare increases is 17.9. Some of those are the things driving any tax increase that we face, and I think the City Council did the very best job they could. at balancing Essex Junction's obvious desire to not see a huge tax increase with the need to maintain our city, update public utilities, make necessary community investments. So yes, I will be voting yes on the budget.
Okay, thank you. And Brian, the same question for you about the budget.
Yeah, the budget on the ballot with us on April 8th is a result of a lot of hard work between the City Council and the city staff and budget and department heads. So look, as Bethany mentioned, the thing that is driving municipal tax increases in Vermont is healthcare inflation. And the proposed budget increase is 3%, whereas Blue Cross and Blue Shield premiums went up about 17, and MVP went up about 9. So I bring that up because this is a pretty tight budget. I have faith in those that put together this budget, and to them I say, good job. I plan to vote yes on the budget, and I encourage Essex Junction voters in joining me in voting yes.
Okay. Thank you, Brian. And continuing on with articles on the ballot, this next question has to do with Article 2. So Brian, do you support Article 2 on the ballot, the general obligation bond of up to $3.8 million to support retrofitting 3 municipal pump stations? And could you, as a follow-up to that, help the voters understand what this means?
Sure. Article 2, it's about a $4 million bond, and what it does is it pays for upgrades to our wastewater system. Some of the pump stations are past their expected life, and we've squeezed more time out of them than we hoped. I believe, in general, that it's better to keep up with maintenance than to defer until something breaks. We learned that on Densmore Drive just last year. So I support the bond, and I will be voting yes, and I encourage the voters to join me in doing so. The other thing I want to point out about this bond issue is that we have an agreement with the town of Essex, and they're going to help pay for this. Of course, that's good for city taxpayers, but from a high level, it's nice to see the town of Essex and Essex Junction working together as good neighbors.
Okay, thank you, Brian. And Bethany, do you support Article 2 on the ballot, the general obligation bond?
I do support Article 2. As Brian mentioned, we are retrofitting pumps on Maple Street, West Street, and River Street that have outlived their expected lifespan, which means that failures and repairs are more likely, which to me means that they're inevitable. I would also rather pay now than look at even costlier repairs down the line. And I think it's a great opportunity to not just maintain those systems, but also upgrade them as this bond is looking to do. So I will be voting yes, and I also encourage Essex Junction residents to do the same.
Okay, thank you very much. And I just want to remind folks, if you're watching live, you can call in with your questions at 802-862-3966. In the meantime, we'll move on to our next question about the some Vermont legislative initiatives. So Bethany, the Vermont legislative season is underway. What are some important initiatives to the community of Essex Junction that you will be tracking and supporting as part of your work as a city council member?
I track a lot of legislation, both on a personal, matter for my job at a nonprofit, and also for what I think will impact Essex Junction. Some of the bills that I think will impact Essex Junction are the immigration reform that requires Governor Scott to get approval from the legislature before entering agreements with federal immigration. I think there are a lot of Essex Junction residents that are paying close attention to things like that. Healthcare reform to enhance the Green Mountain Care Board's regulatory ability, and housing initiatives are all some of the bills that I will be tracking. The housing initiative includes more funding for affordable housing, among other initiatives that I think will be greatly beneficial to Essex Junction.
All right, thank you very much. And Brian, what are some of the initiatives in the legislature that you will be tracking?
Sure. There are 3 initiatives that I'm watching with the most interest during this campaign. The Budget Adjustment Act, which of course Governor Scott just vetoed. He vetoed that bill because the legislature extended the hotel program, and that's the program that helps get our homeless Vermonters, helps them get a hand up, gets them a place to live, and a place to get off the streets and out of the cold. Vermont has the second highest level of homelessness in the United States. The governor's beef seems to be that that's too expensive, and you know, he's not wrong. That said, I mean, I can think of some ways that could address it that would be less expensive, but I don't see him coming to the table with solutions either. You know, and I believe in collaboration. So, the other thing I'm watching, the second thing I'm watching is the various fixes to our school funding formula. Of course, on the City Council, we only control 20% of your property tax bill. I'm talking about the other 80% here. I hope our governor and legislature can come together to find a formula that is equitable across all zip codes, maintains local control, and at the same time doesn't create another tragedy of the commons, which is what was accidentally built into the current system. And thirdly, I am watching the omnibus housing bill as it progresses through both houses. I'm hoping that it will be, and I'm hoping that it can be a vehicle for one particular housing fix that I'd most like to see, and that's one set of stairs. I only have 90 seconds on this question, but I'll talk more about housing, and I've posted an explainer video on my social media channels if you want to check it out.
Okay, and speaking of housing, we're going to stick with you, Brian, on this next question. Does Essex Junction have a housing crisis? What do you see as the nature of housing in Essex Junction, and how to meet the need for safe and affordable housing?
Yep. Yes, we have a housing crisis in Vermont and in Essex Junction. This is a crisis that is affecting our families, our workforce, and our communities. To fix this, we need a multifaceted approach that affects both supply and affordability of housing. Primarily, there are some levers that the City Council already has that we can leverage. One is zoning. We can allow developers to build more densely in exchange for making some of those properties permanently affordable. Number two, I would like to learn from St. Albans City's lead. They're using tax increment financing, or a TIF. They're using that to help jumpstart some of the housing there in St. Albans. I think they're doing good work there. And lastly, I want to talk a little bit about stairs. Have you noticed how in the United States, not just in Vermont, we tend to build long, blocky apartment buildings? You know why that is? Stairs. If you have to have 2 exit stairs, you have to build on multiple lots. They're long and thin, and they have a hallway in the middle. If we allow developers in exchange for building with more fire preventive materials and build with sprinkles, in exchange we allow them to build properties on one central stair, that will allow A, you can build on just one lot, and B, central stair allows you to have multiple bedroom apartments as opposed to a long hallway, which generates studios and one bedroom. So, as I said, I put an explainer video on my social media channels. I would like to see Essex Junction apply to the state for an exemption to that fire code, and I will advocate with our legislatures and senators to try to. Some of them are already working on getting that change into the omnibus housing bill.
Okay, thank you, Brian. And Bethany, this same question for you about housing.
Yes, absolutely. Essex Junction is facing a housing crisis. It's unaffordable to rent, it's unaffordable to buy, and it's hugely impacting all of our residents. There's not enough housing, and there's not a ton of room to build more. I agree that more housing is needed, more dense housing, more mixed-use housing, with mixed residential and commercial space. I think that we need to look at all avenues of potential solutions, whether that's tax incentives for developers, eased zoning in exchange for more affordable units. I know a lot of larger cities also mandate a minimum number of affordable housing in developments of a particular size. And I think all of these and more avenues should be explored to deal with this housing crisis.
Okay, thank you. So this next question has to do with your love of Essex. So Bethany, can you tell us a little bit about why you care about and want to work as a city councilor for the community of Essex Junction? And then as a follow-up to that, what are some of your favorite spots and why do you live here?
I love Essex Junction. I grew up here. I was a Summit Street kid. My first memories are in Brownell Library. My first job was at Rocky's Pizza. I volunteered on the Memorial Day Parade Committee in high school. This city has been involved in every single aspect of my life. I want to protect the things I love most about Essex Junction, the small town feel. I know all my neighbors. I know many more than my neighbors. I know many of my community members. And I know that they'll help each other. I want to protect that. I want to protect some of my favorite spots like the Brownell, like Rockies. Nest and Boxcar are incredible new additions to our community. Martones. I could go on for a really long time about the things I love in Essex. And those are the things that I want to protect as a city councilor. I want to make sure that our streets are as safe as they were when I was a kid, walking all the way from the high school to ADL. I want to make sure that the residents who have made Essex Junction their home can afford to stay there.
Great. Thank you so much, Bethany. And Brian, tell us a little bit about your love for Essex Junction.
Sure. When I was the chair of the Essex Economic Development Commission, I would always say, Essex has everything. And that's because it does, right? We manufacture chips that go into phones all around the world. We have jobs in tech, we have healthcare and manufacturing, either in Essex Junction or nearby. We have some, but not enough. We have some of the most affordable housing in Chittenden County. We have the Champlain Valley Fair. You can walk or ride your bike to parks, pools, trails, and restaurants. In some ways, we have the best transportation links in Chittenden County, even better than Burlington. So, all that said, my favorite part is the people. For example, we recently had a bitter fight about the merger between Essex Town and Essex Junction. But now that we've resolved that, I'm proud to say that as a community, we've moved on and we're ready to work as a team. We have an opportunity that no one in Vermont has had for over 100 years. And that is we get to decide what kind of city we want to be. I want to know what that means to you, and I hope you'll join us as we figure that out.
Okay, thank you, Brian. I do just want to give one last plug. If you're watching this live and you want to call in and ask a question, you can reach us at 802-862-3966. And moving on to our next question, we're going to stay with Brian.
Sure.
It has to do with language access. So as a community with a diversity of languages spoken, what ways do you see that the city government can expand access and accessibility to more community members who want to participate in local democracy?
Sure. Right now, the federal government has placed a lot of things in flux. I'm concerned that their cancellation of anything that smacks of diversity, equity, and inclusion is going to end up cutting support for anything in that area. We don't yet know how those changes are going to filter down to the state and to the city. So I think a lot of people are scared. I am too. I'd hate to promise something that the federal government is going to yank out from under us. So what I do know is this is a community that supports its neighbors. As your city councilor, I will reach out to the communities I don't yet know and try to meet them where they are. To be one of the many Essex Junction folks who helps everyone feel welcome, no matter whether their first language is Nepali, Arabic, Bosnian, Vietnamese, French, or Spanish.
All right. Thank you so much. And Bethany, the same question for you about language access.
I think there's a lot that the City Council can explore. I would love to see City Council meetings translated, major documents translated. I realize that, there's in theory a cost to those, but I think that some of that would be a great opportunity for a particularly ambitious high school student or community volunteers. This is one of the things I love the most about Essex Junction. Our community steps up to help each other. And I think we'd be surprised if we asked them to support their fellow community members in how many people would step up without any additional need for funding. I would also love to reach out to residents, new Americans, residents who speak another language, and ask them how we can support them as a city council rather than prescribing solutions.
Okay, thank you so much. We're going to stick with you, Bethany, on this next question that has to do with public safety. So what is the state of crime and public safety in Essex Junction? How do you use or how will you use your role on the City Council to support building a healthy, vibrant community? And do you think there's a need for police reform?
In a general sense, I support police reform, but I think the Essex Police Department is doing a great job in building community trust, in community policing, and supporting neighborhood watch programs, in reaching out to the community and making sure they know their police department. I would love to work with them on those programs, see what's working, see what we can expand and make sure it's working better. I just moved here back from Washington, D.C., and I've never felt unsafe in the city, but my mom's car was broken into several times, both locked and unlocked. So I understand the issues that Essex Junction is facing as a city. And I think that there's a huge opportunity to work with the Essex Police Department to expand the programs that are working. I'd love to see expanded access to restorative justice programs. I doubt I have much control over that as a city councilor, but it is something I would advocate for. And really making sure that the city council is collaborating with the police department to make sure that our city is as safe as it can be.
Okay, thank you. And Brian, this same question for you about public safety.
Sure. As Bethany did, I grew up in Essex Junction and would walk home from school, and sometimes the front door would be locked. Usually it was unlocked, but sometimes it was locked, and that would be annoying. I would have to walk around. I'd have to walk around back and get a key. So, unfortunately, and I'm sad to say, that's not the world we live in any longer. So that said, we do have, compared to other communities around the country, the biggest crime the crimes that are happening in Essex Junction are property crimes, and a lot of them are, as I'm sorry that your mom had experienced, like a lot of them are people walking around and opening doors and seeing if your door is unlocked. So Essex Police Department, among the other things that it does really well, has a really good social media presence. So I think it would be useful if they did a couple of public service announcements, just to remind people to lock their doors. The second kind of big property crime thing that does happen in Essex Junction is there are a lot of Kias that end up getting stolen. Now, this is because the reason for this is because of a factory defect. So those automobiles of a certain age range are very easy to steal. Now, so there is a factory recall, and you can take your Kia to the dealer, and they will fix it for you. I think if we work together as a community, we can do some things to make it less useful if you're a thief to commit a property crime in Essex Junction, and that will make it safer for all of us.
Okay, thank you. And Brian, this next question for you has to do with climate change. So what role does municipal government play in mitigation of climate change? Can you be specific about initiatives you would encourage through your role on the City Council?
Certainly. Couple things. First off, climate change is real and is already affecting Essex Junction and Vermont. So we need to take proactive steps in order to minimize its effects. I'm not one of those people that believes that Essex Junction in Vermont is too small. I believe that Vermonters chip in to help their neighbors, and this is a thing that we should do. I support the creation of a wastewater utility. One of the biggest ways that Vermont is affected by climate change is the flooding that we saw, particularly in Barrie. Creating a wastewater utility will help mitigate those changes. Secondly, I would like to see Public Works and other departments, as we turn over small engines, we convert them to electric. My wife and I are both driving EVs, and we have gotten rid of our lawnmower, and our weed whackers are all electric. And some of those small machines generate more carbon than do automobiles. So I think that that's a way in which Essex Junction can do its part to help mitigate climate change. And lastly, someday, and not immediately, because this is a big ask, I would like to cover as many city roofs as possible, with solar panels. Not only will that save us money, but that will show that Essex Junction is ready to lead the fight for climate change.
Great, thank you so much. And Bethany, the same question for you about climate change.
I think one of the roles in municipal government in climate change, which, as Brian said, is real and is already impacting us, is to make sure that every decision we make has sustainability in mind. To that end, one of the things that I would advocate for as a city councilor is a comprehensive climate sustainability strategy for the city to help guide all decision making. The city council does already keep sustainability and climate in mind when making decisions and introducing new policies, but strategies like this will just help guide decisions and make sure that we're taking all sustainability and climate factors into account. I'd love to see expanded access to electric vehicle charging stations of all varieties, not Tesla and Ford and all of the different electric vehicles on the market. I think that's a huge barrier to a lot of Vermonters in moving to electric vehicle. I also support expanded access to green energy, more solar panels, cleaner energy use in new buildings, expanded green space. These are all things that the City Council is looking at already that I would continue to advocate for, support, and expand access to.
All right, thank you so much. And we're at our last question. So we've got time for it as well as closing statements. So Bethany, Essex Junction is a wide-ranging and expanding community. What do you see as the most important locations that need redevelopment, and how will you use your role on the City Council to address these issues?
The area that comes to mind first for me is Pearl Street. It's not safe for pedestrians, as we've seen recently. As a city councilor, I would advocate for more crosswalks, as much as some drivers may find this frustrating. Also incorporating pedestrians into the light cycles to decrease the likelihood that they just make a break for it. We're also losing a cornerstone business that's huge on Pearl Street in Big Lots. And I think that's a great opportunity for redevelopment. It's a great area. There's room for mixed-use housing and commercial space. There's room for economic redevelopment with Big Lots leaving, and I think there's a lot of opportunities in the area.
Okay, thank you. And Brian, what do you see as the most important locations that need redevelopment?
Essex Junction is indeed a vibrant and fast-growing community. And as we expand, it's crucial that we ensure our infrastructure and public spaces grow alongside it. One key area that I think could use some redevelopment help is around Five Corners. It has great potential to continue to be a pedestrian-friendly hub with a mix of local businesses, green spaces, and community amenities. The specific area that I could use some attention is the area around the train station. We're in the middle of renovating the station itself, and when that's completed, we'll have an opportunity to revitalize Railroad and Main Streets, improving traffic flow, investing in public spaces there, and when we do that, it will increase foot traffic to the businesses in that corridor.
Okay, great. So we're at time here, but I want to give you both a chance for closing statements. So Bethany, if you'd like about 30 to 60 seconds for a closing statement.
Okay. I'm Bethany Clark. I'm 31 years old. I'm running for Essex Junction City Council because I grew up here. I love it here. I want to be able to afford to stay here for the rest of my life, and I want to make sure that others can also stay here. I want to see a greater representation on the City Council of experiences like mine as a young person, as a renter, as a non-driver, and I want to bring a new voice and a new perspective to the City Council and to local politics, and I am excited to do that. As a young person, we are the future of Essex Junction and of Vermont, and I think it's time that we stepped up and decided to take a stand and have a say in what that future looks like.
Wonderful, thank you. And Brian, your closing statement.
Sure. Like my opponent, I grew up here. I went away to college and worked in several other places. What I always came back to, though, was Essex Junction. Essex Junction is my home. And that's why I'm committed to this community. I volunteer for town and city commissions that help make the city better for everyone. I help run our elections when I'm not on the ballot. I help clean up the train station on Green Up Day, and many more. I have the commitment, I have the experience, and I have the listening skills to help make City Council work for everybody. Tonight, I'm asking for your vote. Please vote for me, Brian Sheldon, on April 8th.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Brian and Bethany, for joining us tonight. We really appreciate you being here and sharing your positions with your constituents. So we also appreciate you for tuning in to Town Meeting TV's coverage of local candidates, budgets, and ballot items. You can find this and more forums at cctv.org or on our Town Meeting TV YouTube channel. Don't forget to cast your ballot on Election Day, which is April 8th. Contact your local clerk to find out how to obtain a ballot and to register to vote. And just as a reminder, in Vermont, you can register to vote on Election Day. Thank you so much for watching and sharing Town Meeting TV. Have a great night.